All right. Howdy, everybody. It's Manny again. Hope you enjoyed Adam's presentation. So, a lot of what we're going to go over in 2, 3, and 4 are going to be a little bit duplicative, some carryover, some overlap, but it's going to have a bit more of a tint of case management, practicing, or being a practitioner through using AI. So, first thing up, right, we're going to do AI, data, and tech in case management and practice management. But before we do, I kind of want to talk a little bit where me being the managing partner of our 6 lawyers, our 20 plus person firm, where this kind of AI movement has affected our daily routines. So let me go to the next slide. All right. So this is who I am. So with Adam, right, we grew the firm from a team of 3 to a team of 20 in 5 years. And we did that through policies and procedures, processes, tech and efficiency, which is what we're going to hit on today, and being cutting edge. And we have core values and a mission statement. But again, we're going to talk really about how we were able to scale and have a really great product, not some, mid-level firm, but no, we really want to practice and make sure we're overturning every stone for clients. And tech is a big way we do that. I'm a former public defender in Broward County. I graduated from Nova Southeastern down here, was on law review, moot court, was in law school, graduated from UF, go Gators. And then I love motion practice. So if anyone wants to kind of know where this is headed, it's headed towards how do we make sure we're building up our cases to be as strong as we possibly can, whether it be through pretrial discovery, motion practice, or then eventually at trial. Okay. And so next up, I want to just have a disclaimer out here. I am not an AI expert, nor am I a futurist. So Adam and I have been to conferences where we've actually heard futurists lecture, and it's mind blowing. And it kind of is almost like a script out of LA. I'm not going to be that person. So if we're going to really get into that deep thought of data is king, should we abdicate now and surrender to the algorithm? Go check out a Joe Rogan podcast. I'm not going to be that guy, unfortunately. There is a really good AI podcast that I'm going to reference later on. That if you are, really digging some of the stuff that we've been talking about and want to kind of dive in more, I would suggest kind of hopping on the drive home or drive to work, really getting into one of these podcasts. So next thing, we're going to talk about what AI is versus what it isn't. And it's really important to understand because AI to one person means something different to another person. And then it usually is dependent upon how much you use it or what you use of it or where you're hearing it. Are you hearing it from CNBC and Fox News? Or are you hearing it from a futurist at a conference? Or are you hearing it from Adam or myself here? So what I have gathered, right, is that AI, as of right now, right, so it's October 2024, it's used to collapse the distance between any problem or question you're having and finding an answer to your question as efficiently as possible. So it's helping you move forward. So we had Tristan Harris as one of the guys that I'll reference later on as well. He's an AI expert. He likes to think of AI right now as becoming interactive tutors to a human. Right. So as Adam was saying, we'll get into, of course, it's not a lawyer. It's not a law clerk. It's not going to be your law professor. But in a way, it's going to take everything that humankind has created over the years and throw it onto a doc that is scalable, whether it be on the web, something scanned in, a database, a cloud. And it's going to pull all of that and be able to teach you or help teach you, be a tutor, if you will, as to how to use that data in a form that is best suited to whatever your problem or question is, right? And it's defined by its creators. So it's important to understand, right, how is AI actually made? One of the important things to understand about AI is that if it's off the rails and no one's actually really monitoring it from the programmer's side, it's going to go haywire and cuckoo bananas, as my daughter says, right? So we want to make sure that the actual AI that we're using is up to date and safe and has guide rails and guardrails. So if you're ever shopping through vendors of trying to use particular programs or new tech that we'll be talking about here that Adam talked before, make sure you're really vetting them to see what their processes in play for testing updates. Because the last thing you want to do is be reliant upon this, which I'm not saying we should, but if you are being reliant upon it, everything's running smoothly, they do an update, and like that, you're going to put out a bunch of garbage to whatever it is in blog writing or a judge. So it's really important we understand that its creators are really what's going to be important and what are the permissions that it allows the data to pull from. And so it's also super important to understand that when we're using it, we want to know, what are we going to use mostly, or what are we seeing mostly? Well, ChatGPT is the kind of, let's say, the grandfather of AI already. And as Adam was saying, it's already on, I forget, 4.0 perhaps, but early on, right, it was pulling data from a data set that was years behind, where it would scale data, where we'd ask, like, who was the last Super Bowl winner? And it was telling you a winner from 3 years ago or so. And so people were getting into trouble thinking ChatGPT is going to make them look super cool on emails or look really great and smart about case analysis, where that law or whatever it was pulling is supremely outdated and it actually made you look like a dunce. But using it for, hey, draft a memo through the office about what appropriate behavior should be, or appropriate courtroom attire is, when you're shadowing a lawyer, if you have like an internship program or something. ChatGPT can do a really good job of creating it. Like, obviously, you want to trust and verify what it's putting out there, and the verification process is very important. But that's really where we're headed. It is a very good tool to assist you in some daily task or form docs or policies and procedures to get that skeleton, out there, and you can go in and edit and change it up. Slide here. All right, so it's a whole new world. So let's take it back, and there's a test from the 1950s that was still being applied until very recently to test, quote unquote, AI, artificial intelligence, right? And what was the test? It was called the Turing test, right? And so what it was doing was, and I'll read it from here so we can actually read it specifically as to what it is. It's called the Imitation Game by Alan Turing in 1950. It's a test of a machine's ability to exhibit intelligent behavior equivalent to or indistinguishable from that of a human. AKA, you're talking with a chatbot and you can't recognize the difference. Now, there are some people that, as Adam was talking about before, where there are live people on the other side of that chat, but maybe their English isn't the best. Maybe they're not a great worker. Maybe they are using a bot and you aren't really able to tell the difference. You're like 95% sure it's a bot. Okay, or you're 95% sure it's a human. You don't know if there's any variance that you don't know. It doesn't pass the Turing test. ChatGPT blew it out of the water. Okay, so it crushed the Turing test. And so right now, there's a really good article by Celeste Beaver on there. It's talking about how ChatGPT broke the Turing test, and the race is now on for new ways to assess AI. There's a really good article out there that I will reference later about how AI and deepfakes and things are making its way into courtrooms, and how we need to make sure that we have new, guardrails and methods and procedures as how to handle that evidence as it comes into our court system. So here's what's important too, right? It passes the CAPTCHA test. So if you're ever trying to sign on online, right, it says, hey, read these weird 6 different letters, capital, lowercase, numbers, exclamation points, things like that, to get onto a website to prove you're a human. You can have ChatGPT or any of these programs, these plugins, constantly scaling websites and filling things out, being quote unquote bots, to get into particular website. So for instance, if you're into sneakers collections, right, there'll be sneaker drops. Or if you're on these retail websites where it's, hey, this is dropping at this time, got to sign in and get in line. They had programs that now, like Nike and things, have had to sort through, where all of a sudden they were getting flooded with bots where they would pass the CAPTCHA test. This is the AI that's doing that. Just like if on the new screens, if you see someone wearing a pair of shoes you like on a picture on your tablet, on your computer, on your phone, you can actually zoom in, touch it, and it's going to scale the web and see what is that. And you're going to have a link right there that you can click to go, oh, this is the Jordan 15, the white and blue colorway. And you can click it and it sends you a link as to where to buy it, things like that. So it's a whole different world now than just the Turing test. Right. What is AI and what isn't it? Let's get to what it isn't, right? It's not an attorney. I think this is obvious, but it's not so obvious to some other people, as we'll get into in a second, right? It's a very famous case study. So AI is not an attorney. It's not a law clerk, and it's not the law. It's not the final word. So of all those things, is it able to do a function that's going to assist any of an attorney, a law clerk, or really pull and grab you the law? Of course, it's an amazing assistant. It's artificial intelligence, but it's an assistant. It's fantastic to make your life easier, allowing you to run your firm or your caseload much easier. It's a guide. It's a tool that must be used. If you're not using it, I want to make this very clear. If you're not using it, you are going to be behind. I'm not going to say it's malpractice because it's not to that level, but certainly what it is you're going to be behind some competitors. Opposing counsel, if they are using it, is going to have a leg up on you because they're going to get work that would take you as a human months to do, perhaps, on some of these queries. And it gets it done like this. Like I'm telling you, they'll have a loading bar and it'll be done within a minute, getting some really deep data, drafting a memo, all kinds of stuff that we'll get into. Now, the Wikipedia analogy, this is funny and ironic. Anyone who's of my age or remembers when you were in school, Wikipedia was, not to be touched. It's not a trustworthy source. Anytime you talked about Wikipedia, professors would shudder up front, right? And go, oh no, X's. Don't put that in here. You can't cite Wikipedia. And so we would all, I remember being students, just shy away from it and not use it as a tool to say, hey, Wikipedia actually sources things. And if you click the sources that they source and verify that they're real, you can just use that source in your book report or whatever it was. I'm seeing that same that same feeling right now with lawyers and ChatGPT and AI. A lot of the traditionalists are shying away from it. Oh, that's a bunch of poppycock. That's not really anything that's going to be accurate. Did you hear about the lawyers in New York? Man, I don't really go around that thing. I don't trust it. Okay, but if you can then verify everything that's being placed in front of you, and you get a process in play on how to use these things, that's scary at all. And so I'm really kind of feeling the vibes of how Wikipedia was 2 decades ago. And AI is a product of what you feed it. And we want to be really careful as to what we feed AI. And I'll talk about data later, because you don't want to be putting in sensitive information on anything that is not a protected website. So ChatGPT, while it's giving us all kinds of great information, it's output. I believe that big data over in Silicon Valley or wherever we're located these days is collecting so much data from us as what we're looking for. Why are we looking for things? How are we looking for things? And big data is farming so much. So it's a give and a take. So we don't want to give sensitive information out via any kind of tech that has not been vetted nor secured. So we want to be really careful when we're using some of this stuff. And I'll get into this stuff later, because it is going to be important where we are going to be able to put in client case documentation and get back some really good stuff that can help you on your case. You just need to make sure that it's a protected, safe site. And it's not AGI yet. So what's AGI? Well, if we go back to the ChatGPT guy holding up Mr. Bean about the email, that was the Terminator. If you've never seen the Terminator, my goodness, I don't know where you've been, but go ahead and watch it, because it's a scary, scary, scary movie that is somewhat come in reality. And what would that be? So it's AGI, so artificial general intelligence. This is that next step. We're not there yet, right? Where it's going to be self-learning, self-thinking, self-acting. A lot of what AI is depends upon what you put into it. It should be, I don't know, conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, but it should be dormant right now, right? It's not going to be doing much unless we are prompting it and feeding it. Okay. So what AI isn't? You don't want to write finally 10 scholarly articles and then ChatGPT sends you completely made up articles. And you may think that's funny, but it wasn't so funny when you get caught on the other side. So there's been a few case studies of this. Most notably was the New York lawyers who were it was a big suit that got into a federal court over an airline. And what happened was there was 2 lawyers kind of working hand in hand on something on the case. I don't remember exactly what. They submitted that brief or whatever motion to the judge. Opposing counsel reviewed it and said, hey, there's cases in here that aren't real. Like, this is not real whatsoever. Can't find them anywhere. The judge then was put on notice of it. And the counsel that used, these New York lawyers that used that AI ChatGPT created memo or brief, actually defended their cases for a quick second before they realized, oh my goodness, I think we made an error. And the judge actually went down to wherever the locations they were cited from, or sent someone there. It's a really long story that is told different ways, and checked, do these cases even exist? Overturned every stone from the bench before ultimately issuing sanctions on these lawyers in the amount of like $5,000 each, public reprimand. But now, even beyond that, their reputation has got to be shot. I know their names. I'm not going to say it now, but I know them. And I remembered upon reviewing for this presentation, I was like, oh, wow, I remember that. And it's important that it's important that you guys know that they were trying to do the right thing ultimately after they were caught. And their reason of doing the right thing after was walking back that they didn't know how to use the tech. They had been told that it would be really beneficial to assist. And then there was some throwing some blame onto one of the lawyers versus the other lawyers. I don't want us to ever get there. And the reason why I want this presentation to be encouraging rather than damning of AI is because if you look and check and verify and you continuously do that, you can start to develop, like I said, those patterns and outlines as how you can handle cases, how you can be able to move things forward in your case without really doing the heavy lifting on the front end for case searching and collection and data collection. It's not, AI is not a licensed lawyer. You are. It has no license to lose. You have your license to lose. That's what your career is, what you provide for your family, your reputation. Spent all that money and time in law school to get that degree and then ultimately pass the bar. So you want to make sure you protect that as you get through this. So I really want to talk about that. So we have 10 minutes till a break. So I'm going to keep going, pushing through, and we'll start the next section, and really I'll be able to power through this. Okay. So how are we going to get into this data and tech and case management and practice management, pardon me. So first, we want to look at popular AI tools. We use some of these, right? Case text, co-counsel is the big one. If I'm telling you, you guys should look into something, this is what you should look into. If you get this if you get this little nugget out of the presentation, you're on your way. It is, and it was just bought by Thomson Reuters for $650 million in late 2023. So it is in change right now. But what it does is it's combining the case law, like Westlaw databases with ChatGPT with guardrails on it. And we use this quite frequently at the firm, and we trust and verify it. And it's amazing. And what it does is it allows you to really become, let's say, trial and error lawyers, where you can ask different prompts, and you got to really know how to type and how to ask the questions of case text and co-counsel. If you remember back in the day when you were in law school, you have to learn Boolean searches to get the most out of Westlaw. It's not so much Boolean searches anymore, but you want to learn, and there's a whole course that I took, or a presentation that I watched, pardon me, on how to correctly prompt ChatGPT. You can Google that and look at some websites, and you'll learn how, oh, wait, maybe I'm asking this the wrong way. And just some small tweaks in your ability to ask the AI specific questions will give you a totally different yield on your results. So that's fantastic. Now, in conjunction with that, you can go with the regular OpenAI ChatGPT and use that, like I talked about internal office memos, policies and procedures, just scaling the web for various information. But I also want to be very cautious with those two things, because you'll be prompted, they'll ask you, it does a good job if you forget to include the jurisdiction where you're looking for, let's say, whether Miranda rights should be read prior to the reading of implied consent once someone has been subject to a lawful arrest. And if you don't say what state or jurisdiction it is, it will ask you, I need the state or jurisdiction to give you a proper response, which is fantastic. Maybe that wasn't there at one version of this program, but it certainly is there now, and it'll make sure you're giving it the region, because it doesn't want to give you something in Wyoming where you're looking for something in Florida where we're based out of. And furthermore, if you're a local counsel, right, you're practicing the local area, a lot of what you beat your competitors at is because you know the local rules. You have that leg up of knowing the rules of the game intimately. For instance, there are certain judges' policies and procedures and trial orders and discovery deadlines that if you ask this all-knowing, all-powerful co-counsel, case text, ChatGPT, AI, it's maybe in the future, but likely not going to be scaling the local rules and their policies and procedures to know if you're in front of Judge ABC, you need to make sure you're doing XYZ on the case, or you're going to be in violation of an order, and the other side's going to have a really big leg up on you in the case. So remember, AI is not a licensed lawyer. You are. Use this to your benefit. Use this to cut down time where you would be searching through Westlaw, where you would have a law clerk do something. Maybe you don't have to pay for a law clerk anymore if you're trying to scale your business. There's a lot of things that you can do. But again, make sure you're verifying. Other AI tools that you can use. We use Parrot Court Reporting. Amazing, guys. And trust me, we take a lot of depos. We're one of the jurisdictions down here in one of our counties. We're actually able to take depositions on almost all criminal cases, and we take a lot of them. It's a digital court reporting company that within the software, you're going to get a live rough draft that's prompted for you as it's coming up. You're going to be able to get deposition summaries. You're going to have a video that kind of goes along with the closed captioning so you can see and maybe play back for a jury or cross-examination or impeachment the actual transcript in conjunction with the video, and you don't have to time it out. I remember back when I was a public defender, I have to take the audio and kind of time it out, pause, play, and write out what was said between seconds 125 and 250. And I was a lunatic when it came to trial prep. My wife will tell you I had tabs everywhere. I had every single word transcribed in my own hand with a timestamp to make sure I could go and play it for cross-examination if I need for 30, 50-page depo transcripts. I don't need to do that anymore, okay? Parrot Court Reporting does that. It will save you dozens of hours a year, maybe more, depending on how much you litigate. Next up, Even Up. So Even Up does medical record summaries, and they create and automate demand letters. Their specialty, from what I'm able to see, I don't use them. Talk to somebody I field. They do a lot of really good demand letters where it'll read some stuff for you and send stuff out in a fashion that is really efficient. I know demand letters can be a big deal when you're in that pre-suit to litigation. You need to make sure they're correct and abide by Florida statutes. So I don't know what statutes you guys will be working on who's watching this, but definitely something to look into is Even Up. Parrot, somewhat similar, not Parrot Court Reporter, but Parrot is right here, the Parrot IT. Very specific to medical summaries and deposition summaries, case summaries, and case timelines. They do a really good job of timelines. So if you're having a giant stack of papers, right? I'm talking about discovery or medical records, that could be 1,000 pages. AI is going to help you get through that. We do a lot of white collar federal cases where there's, data this big. Wouldn't you love to have something that can summarize it for you and give you a timeline of what was going on? Also, you really want to be careful to make sure that what you're feeding it is protected. Make sure you vet your vendors and follow your ethical guidelines within your state. And then Esquire Tech. This is really cool. I looked into this a little bit. I used to do a little bit of civil work where it's going to make the civil discovery process so much easier, where if you're sending your documents out, the request for production, request for interrogatories, request for answers, demand for discovery, right, RFPs, all of those things, if you send them out, it will take the demand, put it into a nice, easy, editable format, places where you can upload specific documents, renames them for you, and it's a kind of ping pong back and forth with your client that is done for you with reminders, with follow-ups, all kinds of stuff that makes your life so much easier, because we all know how painstaking it can be if you're working on a case and getting quote unquote buried in discovery. As Adam was talking about earlier, things that will allow you to even the playing field with the big boys or big girls or big firms, this will help you. So you're not getting buried by discovery. Because if you're working on a contingency fee, you want to work fewer hours. Not that you're working harder, but you're working smarter. Now, if you're on the billable side, you may not want to cut down your time, in a quarter of the time it would take to do something. I'm not saying that's ethical, but I'm saying, hey, look, if you got this tech, why don't you use it and be a complete beast when it comes to case processing and case handling? So these are some of the powerful AI tools that really go towards data management. And we'll go to the next slide, and then after that, we'll take a break. The next slide is data. So data, if those are for my Star Trek nerds, that is data. He is synthetic intelligence, and I don't want to get into too much nerdy stuff, but he's essentially stating that he's says AI is an insult, right? He's supposed to be the self-learning kind of humanoid, if you will, but he's very matter of fact, and he knows just about everything. And that data that we have, right, is what you need to make AI work. You have to feed it. So think about ways that you can use this tech. So this is now we're shifting into what is the tech? How can we use it? Imagine if whether it is in the sign-up room, whether it's talking with a client, whether it's case prep, or whether it's in court. Imagine if you had a database on every single officer, okay, in, let's say Fort Lauderdale Police Department, and you could click their name, and all of a sudden it's got all the depot transcripts that have ever been done on that officer, all of his or her probable cause affidavits, all of their body camera that could potentially be scaled. And what if there's a tech, an AI, that can review and summarize that so-and-so does this order of every single time in a DUI, and he says he doesn't see bloodshot, watery eyes in one case as a sign of impairment, but in another case he did. In a third case, he says he's not actually trained to understand really what is going on with the eyes in a case because he's not what's called DRE or whatever it is. What I'm getting at is, what if you had a giant database where you can find conflicts left and right, and you can build, if your client comes in and was arrested for DUI, again, we do criminal offense, I'm going to primarily talk about that. And one of the signs of impairment was that they had bloodshot, watery eyes, slurred speech, whatever an alcoholic beverage. And in one of the depot transcripts, that same officer said on a different case, I don't really look at slurred speech too damning because everyone speaks differently. He could have an accent. We're in South Florida. There's a lot of different accents, but definitely sounded a little off. And then there was another one that says, well, slurred speech to me is a very telltale sign of DUI. And almost every time I can equate that to this person's impaired, or I should really check this out more. Boom, conflict of evidence. Can use that at trial, can use that as impeachment for any evidentiary proceedings, can use it in a mitigation memo going forward. And I think the same can be said of opposing counsel. What if we have a database of opposing counsel, right, always filing the same objections every single time, right? We know it happens. And what if we really wanted to file bad faith sanctions? What if we really wanted to really get hyper aggressive and be like, hey, listen, John Smith, I know what you're going to do here. I have it all here in our database. So do you really want to go down that road? Or do we want to try to resolve this case amicably in the right way? And that's what's fair to our clients. Doctors, witnesses, those are going to be really important for everyone. And if you stack your ammo, if you build that database, that arsenal, and you find a tech that you know, like, and trust, and you can feed it in there and really start to build these things on your witnesses and people you come across daily in your cases, you're going to have a leg up not only on your competition, on your opposing counsel, and the judge is going to be hyper impressed. You're going to build a new reputation for your firm like we have, where I'm telling you, when people come in, we're able to pull our cases. We function on Salesforce, which I'll talk about down below, where we're going to be able to build all of these profiles for specific witnesses and have summaries as to how they do X, Y, or Z in ABC cases. And that's a huge piece of defense from our perspective. And I think you guys can find value on that every single way. So start wiring yourself to think about, how can I make that useful in my management? And then the customer relationship management systems, we call them CRMs, right? Down below are some of the really awesome ones that are using AI integrated in their own management platforms, where we've had, we have Salesforce. Down there is my case, Filevine, Clio, CasePeer. These are all CRMs that people are using to grow and scale their firms and provide really good customer experiences and being able to move these cases forward. They're hyper evolving with AI, whether it's their own self AI or they have plugins and they work with ChatGPT or other things. We can go on a whole presentation specifically about this, so I won't, but just look into that, because I'm telling you, they're evolving at a very fast rate, so fast that we're struggling to even keep up with it, and we really try to. We're going to hop on into section 3, which is AI and surveillance and investigations. Very broad topic, so we'll get right into it. So evidence pools are only growing, okay? It used to be Big Brother is watching, but now we have private companies mining data. We have tech running all the time. And what happens is that AI is going to constantly be scanning information for patterns, quote unquote, triggering events, timeline creations on a 24/7 basis. So think of surveillance video being pulled, social media platforms being pulled consistently, every dot, punctuation mark brought into a database on a 24/7 basis. News articles are being pulled all day, every day. The dockets can be ran through some of these programs. Anything where data is constantly being produced will need to have AI to completely eat and gobble that up and process it into whatever it needs and determine whether it's relevant, whether it's not relevant, whether it's somewhere in the middle. And some of these companies are doing this on a consistent basis. So a lot of times, even let's think private investigator or investigator on a claim, where you want to see what's going on with a particular witness, traffic pattern, location, you name it. Okay. There are programs that you can use that's going to be able to determine, oh, goodness, on this date, there was a triggering event on the video feed. I wonder now, was that kept? Oh, it was kept. Let's look at it. Because sometimes, right, if you are requesting surveillance camera from a 7-Eleven, that 7-Eleven says, oh, well, we auto record over anything 7 days out. It deletes, it gets recorded over 14 days out, whatever the policy and procedure is for that particular 7-Eleven. And so even if you do a letter to preserve evidence, sometimes it's too late by the time a client contacts you, right? They may contact you 10, 15, 30 days, a year after the incident. But what if there was a database of triggering events that 7-Eleven will house forever? Now, what not doesn't necessarily have to be for your purposes of the case, because they may not even know you exist. They're not going to just do it for your benefit, but maybe for their own benefit. If they're ever suffering a lawsuit, or they need to make sure that they abide by letters to preserve evidence so that they don't have a judge come down and sanction them. So there's a lot of use for this that's going to be outside of just, say, the legal area, but because it's being used elsewhere, it now allows us to have new pools of data to pull from. There are programs out there that you can, the traffic cameras that are out and about on the streets. Now, they're not the red light cameras that catch you, but they're traffic flow cameras. If there's a trigger event, it would record that, and you can actually go in and pull from that and use it for your case. That's big for a lot of auto accident cases, DUIs, right? Well, we'll go in and we'll look and we'll click and we'll say, oh, wow, on US 1 and 17th Street, this happened on February 7th. Let's see, did they preserve any data? Was there any triggering event? Because a triggering event doesn't have to just be an accident. Whatever the program is say it to be. So what if they just have any police car that they see in their screen? What if they have any lights overhead? If there is a pedestrian walking across the street, if there is an accident. So there's a lot of things that can be collected now that will make our jobs better in the future. So we want to make sure not just are we looking at data like medical records and stuff like that, but let's think bigger and what else is being collected and preserved, either from companies or something that we can pay a company to be able to get access to, so we can act quickly and expediently to give our client the best chance of success in their case. And if we're doing that, we're better than our competitors. We're going to beat opposing counsel. We're going to press the judges. Theme that's going to be continuous if you're using this to the benefit of your client or your cases, right? And then here's a really good analogy. Think about how robotics, right, are eliminating some jobs, not all, right? You go to a McDonald's and you're barely interacting with a human. The human still has to, put the fries in, make sure they're cooked, do quality control, and kind of man or house some of the stations. Now, ultimately, could those be replaced? I'm not a futurist. Can't tell you if that's going to happen or not. But we see workers going on strike right now. Right now, there's a big strike kind of happening in the U.S. Again, this is happening in filming this in October 2024. And a lot of what they're negotiating as part of their settlement is not just a pay raise, but also a decrease in the amount of automated jobs to come. So there is a fight in that realm. We're not going to get into that here, but I see that happening here where it comes to evidence collection, maybe where it's private investigators, where we're going to be able to see tech being able to do the job of a law clerk to go and find evidence from somewhere, a private investigator. Now, they won't totally eliminate these jobs, but certainly it's something that is new and upcoming, and you want to be on the cutting edge of things because it's going to make your practice a lot stronger. But as a good friend of mine, Lee Corso, says, not so fast, my friend, because as we know, tech is not always correct. So this is what people thought AI would be in 30 years. The picture on the left looks like that movie I, Robot, right, with Will Smith, great movie. And then the AI now, if you can't see, it's a circle around. This is what happens on a lot of these videos, where it identifies a triggering event or a person walking into a particular place. And it says dog on the cat, right? Very clearly not a dog, but AI might look at it, scale it, and the way it is programmed, saying, oh, it kind of looks like a dog. We'll label it a dog. It's going to make mistakes, right? It's not perfect. One of the things that's important about this is, what if there is an AI for wanted persons, right? What if there is it takes your facial recognition software, there is facial recognition software, it takes a picture of your face, the feds or the law enforcement are able to now take that and apply it to 7-Elevens or rest stops along the highway, constantly frequented places. And Big Brother now works with AI where it's able to see that person's face and then say, ding, 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 we found this person. He's in Wyoming when, on the run. Think about other ways that could apply to your field. Again, I'm talking about this from my perspective, but think about your field. Maybe there's big insurance companies are going to do deals later on with LA Fitness, and LA Fitness is going to have this recognition. And if it shows someone in there that matches the facial recognition of someone who's claiming, $50 million, $20 million because his back hurts or whatever it is, well, maybe that video is going to be preserved by LA Fitness. Now, again, I hope this doesn't happen. I hope this isn't Big Brother. I'm not very into that surveillance, but that is a possibility. But absolutely. So I want to make sure we're on the lookout for that.